I'd now like to invite all of our presenters for the last session, so Joseph and Ciara, and also to Seamus and Stephen. So Nola's just going to set up the mics, and we need to get an additional chair as well. We have one here actually. Okay, I'm conscious of time, so we'll run through this quite quickly, and I'm delighted to welcome, first of all, I'd like to introduce our panellists. So our first panellist is Seamus Gallagher. So Seamus is the Director of IrBEA's, and I suppose the easiest way, Seamus, is to allow you to explain what you do and I suppose your own role within the biogas sector.
Well, IrBEA's is a startup company, if you like, and we tend to focus downstream from the AD. We recognised the constraints on the development of the AD sector in Ireland, and that has been talked about many times today in terms of grid connection, and also grid connection in terms of electricity and the grid connection in terms of gas injection into the national grid. And so we looked at those challenges, and we've been working now to develop ways to bypass that to make the AD, a small farm-scale AD plant, more profitable for the farmer. So what we do is we take the raw biogas from the farm, and we've got 2 projects running at the moment where we have a mobile biogas to biomethane upgrader. So we actually buy the biogas off the farmer, we upgrade it to biomethane, and then we take that to a central location, put it into bulk, if you like, and then we sell it either to transport or mostly transport, to be honest. So we're looking at the tourism sector and the HGV sector. So by doing so, suddenly the figures for small farm scale AD stack up, and that the developer doesn't have to incur the capex of purchasing gas upgrading equipment. And the second project that we're working on at the minute is where we actually take the raw biogas and we upgrade it to biomethanol. Now, biomethanol will be a new product, if you like. Most people maybe aren't aware of that technology, but it's a highly in-demand product. It's a valuable product. From an environmental point of view, it's very good in terms of the fact that we capture the CH4, the biomethane, and the CO2, and the hydrogen. But biomethanol doesn't have to be compressed. It's temperature stable. And then, so we don't have to incur the cost of a virtual pipeline where biogas has to be compressed to 250 bar. We don't have to incur the cost of an expensive truck, and we don't have to incur the cost of decompressing the gas at the gas injection facility. And so on that project, we're at TR7. So now we're developing the automation and the telematics, and we're getting the unit accredited and getting it CE marked so it'll be ready for market.
Very good, Seamus. And I suppose you have listened to all the discussions here today, so you would see a strong potential and role for more smaller biogas systems than maybe, probably as well as the larger systems, but can you just elaborate on where you see the potential and role for, say, more farm-based systems? I know you're a farmer yourself and you understand agriculture and farming and all of that aspect, so maybe how does it all tie together?
Well, I mean, I'm familiar with the Northern Ireland system and the German system, where the production of biogas is heavily subsidised. In Northern Ireland, you've got the ROCs payment. But that subsidy journey is coming to an end, and then we're going to have a lot of small-scale ADs which will be switched off. They've been switched off in Germany every day, and those pieces of equipment are going to become redundant. And so we will then provide an alternative for the developer, where we take the biogas and, as I say, upgrade it to biomethanol, and we continue to provide an income for the farmer.
Okay. And just to follow on from that, Seamus, obviously the political landscape in Ireland, and indeed all of that, has an impact upon the future of all of this sector in terms of, we've had the strategy, now we have election coming on us tomorrow. What do you think the political, what impact will the political system have on the future development of the biogas industry, in your opinion?
That's a very good question and very relevant. The first thing I would like to see is that we've got so many different aspects to the biogas industry. We've got the RTFO, the Renewable Transport Fuel Obligation. We've got the RHO, which was the old BOS, the Biofuel Obligation Scheme. And I would like to see all of this brought under the umbrella, if you like, of one organisation where it all can be joined up. It's too disjointed at the moment, and us as developers and farmers, we're lagging way behind because there isn't a joined up approach. So I would ask everybody to go to the count centres, if you like, this Saturday and Sunday, and to lobby your politicians and tell them what you want, because Monday morning they won't ask.
Okay, Seamus, thanks for your perspectives. Now I'll turn to Stephen. So Dr. Stephen Nolan works for, I think, Gloucester Bio is one of the companies on your extensive CV, Stephen, and we've engaged with you through IrBEA for a long number of years through a variety of different organisations and forums. So do you want to just tell us about yourself and maybe the work that you're doing in the sector? Because really what you're doing is you're making or helping and assisting to improve the potential efficiency of farm-scale AD systems by having developed an additive which helps around storage slurry and all of that. So do you want to just give us an outline of your various different work programs currently?
Yeah, so I'd be involved in biogas plants, full-scale plants, sort of either running them or getting them up and running or optimising them. I know of a few in the room that would have had different inputs to those plants over the years. You're checking your well. And anyway, so as part of that work, I've been involved with a company called Gloucester Bio, a small startup out of the University of Galway. Looking at emissions from slurry, primarily looking at emissions from slurry, but a secondary benefit then is optimised anaerobic digestion from slurry. So 12% or so of all greenhouse gas emissions from agriculture in Ireland are from stored slurry. The idea they had was you knock that on the head by as much as you can, and then your 25% emissions reduction target is a lot more achievable. So from lab scale, starting around 2018 through to full scale rollout on multiple farms around Ireland, we've developed an additive that in lab scale is getting 90% reductions, but at full scale is getting 80% reductions in methane emissions from stored slurry. And so just taking the 12% total agricultural greenhouse gas emissions, if you were to treat all the slurry in the country, you could reduce our agricultural associated emissions by about 8% quick enough, which should be on a par with that and 3.5 over whatever are promising. Gloucester are continuing on and looking at feed additives and developing that out, and there's something promising there as well that'll be a lot more usable than Boger. But a secondary kind of benefit of trapping the carbon in the slurry where it's not been emitted to atmosphere is that then that slurry downstream becomes a better feedstock logically for anaerobic digestion. So we've proven that out on a pig farm in Waterford, actually farms where Canon McGrath would have a relatively small AD plant there, and he's feeding slurry from the pigs. And the impact is more obvious on pig farms because the slurry is sitting at 20-22 degrees and a lot more volatile, so within 10 days of sitting in storage you've lost more than half your gas potential. So by treating the slurry in his tanks and then feeding that onto the AD plant, he saw an uplift of 100%, so he was getting 10 cubes of gas per tonne, and he was getting, from untreated stuff, and he was getting 20 cubes of gas per tonne from the treated. So rolled out to full-scale AD, technically full-scale AD, although I consider it quite small. We've also gone off to AFBI and treated their slurry and seen no net negative effect, because that's often a question we get. There were some issues with feeding and pumps and all that on AFBI, so we didn't maybe get the full benefit of the trial, but a question that we're often asked is if you treat slurry and then feed that into your digester, do you risk killing the digester? And the answer we got from that trial is no, there's no risk.
Okay. And if you, from a practical point of view, if you use the example of Brendan's dry heifer house, that's, the slurry is generated over the winter, but he doesn't need that slurry to put into his AD unit until the month of July or August or whatever. So how would that work from a practical perspective in his case? How much material would he need to put in per bay or per tank? Or how,
so there's probably a very unique thing with Brendan, because he's one of the only big organic lads in the country, so I'm not sure he'd allow my IBCA chemicals to arrive on his farm maybe, but I'm not sure the status of that. But that's the real benefit then, is if you're talking about feeding slurry throughout the year, obviously most farms in the country store for 3 months or as little time as possible and get it out on the 12th of January or start rinsing it out. But if you want it as a feedstock consistently throughout the year, obviously the longer you hold it in your tank, the more gas you lose, because especially as you get into warmer weather, it's more volatile, it's going to release more CH4 into the atmosphere. So by treating it, you'll see the treatment effect wearing off every 2 or 3 weeks, and so you just get hit it on the head again. That's all an automated system that can be installed on the farm, so the farmer doesn't have to intervene. And so you can maintain that slurry's potential for longer into the year.
And cost-wise, is this available to the...
It's sort of pre-commercial, it's been rolled out, it's on Shinnex Farm GRC, it's on, ADP Group, one of their big farms, it's down in Chagas in Johnson Castle, so there's...
It's been rolled out.
Yeah, it's been rolled out, but I wouldn't like to give you a price per ton. But
okay.
The issue that Glasgow will face is who pays for the stuff.
Yeah.
Because obviously there's some benefit to a farmer if he has an AD, you can get some of that benefit back. There's some benefit to the farmer when he's spreading, because you've also dropped ammonia in the slurry, and it's a higher value fertilizer in the back end, but convincing farmers.
Okay.
How is it? You said there about automated and
yeah.
how it's applicated in the tank. So how is that done over, say, a long tank that could be 150 foot long?
Yeah, so there's a dosing pump with a manifold, and then there's pipe work just laid. It's run down along the length of the tank, and there's drops taken off that pipe work every 2 or 3 meters, depending on the shape of the tank that will be designed to suit a tank. So the drops are every 2 or 3 meters, and then when the additive is added, it reacts with something in the slurry and it disperses, so you can see it sort of blooming throughout the tank as it goes down along, so it disperses pretty well.
Okay, maybe if I hand over to Chris just for a second. I know you've explained your own work regarding what you presented today, but I know you're doing probably other work too in AFBE on AD and other areas. So is there anything else you want to tell us about around pyrolysis, biochar, digestate, all that area, Chris? I'm putting you on the spot now.
No, you give me a moment to sell our activities, yeah. We do a lot. I think probably in the last sort of 5-10 years, the research work that we've done, my 2 colleagues, Gary and Ashley as well, and others that haven't come with us today, it started off being about renewable energy. It started off being bioenergy, renewable energy, what opportunities were there for farmers to kind of implement some kind of activities, diversification activities, different technologies on their farms in order to reduce their overall greenhouse gas. We've got a lot about that today. And that is, of course, still very, very relevant. But we've had a few sort of, hiccups along the way with sort of bioenergy policies and things like that. And I think where we've got to now, and those graphs I showed, all the yellow charts, shows that actually we've got a massive mountain to climb here to reach for agricultural sustainability. So I think when it comes to agriculture, that is the main area we're working on, is about how to achieve sustainable livestock agriculture. It's also about competitivity as well. We're talking about competitivity, not just in pollution, but also in greenhouse gas emissions and cost. So I think those are the main drivers. So other than what I was speaking about earlier on, management slurries, we also do a lot in the north on diversification to different crops for environmental protection, for diffuse protection, slurry or applied slurries, fertilizers. So the first work that I started doing with IrBEA, was very much about energy crops, biomass crops, what else can farmers do in order to kind of, create energy, if you like, in their agricultural land base. And that work is still going on with us. In fact, it's probably more work's going on there now. Thanks. By implementing, buffer strips and biofiltration blocks and all that kind of stuff, we can help protect the environment. We can help protect the water environment from those discharges and runoffs I was talking about earlier. But there's still no real policy in place to promote that kind of a thing. But it's something that we do feel is going to have to happen. One thing that you're probably aware of as well in the north is we're running a thing called the Soil Nutrient Health Scheme. At the cost of, I think, something like 38 million, which basically means that in the space of 4 years, we will have tested almost every field within the whole of the country. I don't know how many fields there are, 700,000 fields or something. Tested almost every field for nutrient analysis, P, K, organic carbon, sulfur, and along with that nutrient analysis, the farmers have also been given things called LiDAR mapping, which these LiDAR mapping essentially is a bit of digital terrain mapping which gives the farmer a real good picture of when you get a flooding event or when you get a rainfall event or a high precipitation event. These are the routes that you're likely to see runoff off your farm, off your field. These are the points that actually, if you've just spread slurry or have high P level fields, and believe you, we do have a lot of high level phosphorus index fields, these are the routes by which you are most likely to lose nutrient into the waterway. That's a waste for the farmer, but it also gives rise to a lot of what you read about the last couple of years within our water quality. So I think we do have a good opportunity now to start to consider the implementation of some of the work that we have done at IrBEA, and actually even in my pre-IrBEA days, on maybe focusing biofiltration blocks, different land use activities within certain aspects of our agricultural terrain to try to make the benefits of a diversified agricultural economy, but also to try to protect water quality at the same time. So that's a big chunk of what we do.
Very good. I have a question here, Chris, just maybe you might be able to answer. Given emission saving of slurry storage treatments, and maybe it's for Stephen as well, and or separation, has any progress been made in relation to the nitrates and carbon accounting for farmers?
This is actually, do you want to go first on this one? I've been wittering away for.
No, go ahead.
Nitrogen. Well, there's a lot of talk about. I just want to talk about carbon for a moment, just because it's come up in so many discussions lately. The way we talk about carbon offsetting, and actually, my organisation tends not to talk so much about carbon offsetting as carbon insetting. And a few people have mentioned today, in fact, I think Joseph, you did, you were showing a whole load of dairy companies which were demanding, they're striving for 2030 targets and 2050 targets to reduce their greenhouse gas. But that comes down to their primary producers as well. So they want to see the primary product, their pound of butter, their kilo of beef, whatever it is, coming onto their shop shelves at a lower carbon, a lower greenhouse gas density than they currently are. And that's a great opportunity for on-farm AD, absolutely. But it's also a good opportunity, I think, for farmers who might be, exporting slurries off their farm, or even diversifying their agricultural land base for environmental reasons, but incorporating crops that will sequester more carbon, that will actually give rise to carbon resources, that will require no fertilizer inputs, that will require no pesticide, herbicide. So there's quite a lot of greenhouse gas savings on that. So we're working with some of the carbon calculation tools, Farm Carbon Calculator, AgriCalc, these guys, to try to develop aspects of that to help us along with that argumentation for farmers to do that. Nitrogen bit, maybe you want to go nitrogen bit, Stephen. Nitrogen's a bit of a scary one, because we do talk about digestate being a better nitrogen fertilizer because the N is more available. You can't argue that. We've also, apart from our phosphorus pollution problems, we've got a lot of ammonia pollution problems. And I think it's probably fair to say that it's the potential for more ammonia emissions from our digestate is maybe outweighing the argument at the moment, in comparison to the benefit to the farmer for the nitrogen to the farm. The nitrogen emissions are so significant that it puts AD into a slightly difficult light.
Okay, if you could just pass the mic to Joseph. We have a question here. For the 400 farm-scale CHP systems mentioned in the EU, what is the most common funding subsidy model, and are farmers' costs similar to the demo projects here. So I guess it's the demo project costings we've outlined in the slides earlier.
Yeah, so if you remember from the slide with the different regions, I think most of the different regions will have a capex subsidy of between 10 to nearly 50% in some countries on the overall system and the groundworks next to it. So that makes, like Wallonia, so the French-speaking part of Belgium, they had, they still have a 40% subsidy on the overall project, and then a feed-in tariff and a renewable heat incentives. So for the farms of 60 dairy cows with 11 kilowatt, we can go as 2.5 years payback, which is kind of nothing really. So that, and then the feed-in tariff will mostly see countries ranging from 13 to 20 cents. France will have a 20-year feed-in tariff of 21 cents when the electricity is produced from slurry. So that makes as well a long-term visibility for the farmers.
So it's a hybrid model really. While capital is a strong part of it, it's probably a hybrid model in that it's a number of different supports.
It's a bit of both, and that's enables the farmers.
And in terms of the cost of your demo units, are the costs in terms of development similar to what we would have highlighted, say, on Brendan's case or the other project's case, or like what are you talking for your system of a similar size?
So in terms of the size, Brendan would have.
In terms of the cost of the installation for your particular systems, would it be similar to the cost that we've articulated in the presentations earlier?
Yes.
Very similar.
So that's the min and max, so yeah.
Yeah, okay. Seamus, there's a couple of questions for yourself here, and I'll go to the audience then. I know there's one or two in the audience. So the first one, Seamus, is have you any rough indication of maybe the price that would be paid to farmers that sell their biogas? Or I know you highlighted two potential avenues to the market, but what would your comment be on that in terms of the price paid, or is that difficult to assess at this point?
It's difficult to assess. I mean, our model will be very similar to the creamery model, where the creamery basically takes the milk from the farm and they process it at a central location, whereas we intend to process the biogas on the farm and take the processed biogas, the biomethane or biomethanol, off the farm and sell it to the market. So again, it's going to be very difficult to call it. The price of equipment, whether there's a subsidy in place. We will be entering into 12-month upward contracts with the farmer. There will be longer-term contracts available with 12-monthly price reviews. So, but the price that we will be offering per cubic metre of the raw biogas, it's too hard to call. Yeah.
Individual. The other one is around green certs. Have you, is there a particular target market for the certs that will be generated? Or
again, Sean, we had a very good meeting last week with all the members in relation to the carbon credits and so forth. This, again, Ireland is so far behind on this whole topic. We believe that the polluter must pay, and we would like to see the certs generated in Ireland used in Ireland. We don't want to see the market for certs undermined, where a polluter in Ireland can import certs from Norway or from Denmark or even further afield, and that way get by their obligations. So that's something, I suppose, at a political level needs to be addressed.
Okay, final question. And I think, look, we've proven that through the project, but do these farm-scale biogas plants stack up financially, or will there be a need for continuing government support? So I think it's...
Look, it's going to be a hybrid. It's as Joseph has said, and we have seen it in our work in Denmark and Germany and so forth. It's going to be a hybrid between 20 to 50% capex and an ongoing support payment through a feed-in tariff, an obligation of some sort or other. That's what's going to get the industry to work. It won't work otherwise.
Okay, I think that is addressed all the questions on Slido. I'll come to Ciara in a second, but just before that, I know was there a question at the back, Bernard? Yeah, you'll have to shout, Bernard.
Yeah, I suppose Chris touched on it a bit. It's around ammonia and an unintended consequence. I suppose put a bit of context on it. Nationally, we've exceeded our ammonia thresholds 9 of the last 20 years. We have a nice effort from the EU Commission in relation to infringement for 2020. In terms of Joseph's presentation and Ciara's, we see a 20% increase in ammonia concentration from digestive. including ammonia stripping within AD, what's the cost, and should it be conditional on the development of the AD sector?
Okay, and yeah, that's two very good questions, Bernard, so thanks for those. So Chris, do you want to take it, and Ciara then maybe, or do you? I don't mind, whatever.
Yeah, so I suppose that question is relevant to the research that's ongoing in Johnstown Castle, as I mentioned, in terms of looking at digestate spreading on land and looking at what the actual greenhouse gas emissions are from that. When that research is to go through peer review and to be published, and I think at that stage we'll have a better sense of what the potential emissions are associated from ammonia with land spreading in an Irish context. It may be the case that if we use appropriate spreading techniques like low emission slurry spreading, it may be sufficient to mitigate the ammonia, but I think we'll need to get to the point where we know where the emission factors are to consider, are there other additional measures like the ammonia stripping that are going to be required as a mitigation measure.
Chris, do you want to comment on that, or any further comment?
Yeah, just on the ammonia thing, just a very quick one. I actually see the AD opportunity as a real opportunity to try to get a handle on the ammonia an awful lot more. The route that I kind of discussed there, that kind of strategy, once that develops, it will definitely turn into a digestate processing facility. That digestate processing facility will definitely need ammonia removal, whether it's gaseous ammonia removal or forced ammonia removal from the digestate product, because that digestate product in the end is going to go to a number of different routes, which are currently part of those projects they showed, where the nitrogen is not necessarily part, well, it is not part of what the onward use is going to be for, or the valorization route. So I see the digestate processing actually as a real way of nutrient separation, nutrient partitioning, so actually it can be used properly. Whether it could be something like the liquid fraction coming from an AD plant, with a reduced pH heading back to farms for application, possibly. I think that's going to be an improvement in the overall emissions. But I think from what you said, yeah, it's the ammonia emissions, and we've been exceeding ours as well, which is really the bigger talking point than the fertilization benefit of the digestate.
And just to follow on question on that, Chris, what sort of costs are associated with ammonia stripping, and how does that, like, that's going to be an issue for smaller scale plants? Again, it'd probably be an option for large.
Yeah.
Is it?
Yeah, I don't see it happening on small plants.
And Stephen, do you want to comment on it from a larger plant perspective?
Yeah, it's already so it's an industry that has not developed in Ireland because we keep coming up with ways to knock it on the head every time it comes anywhere close to being developed. So you can throw out other ways of knocking it on the head. That's what enforcing new rules that aren't required in any other country in Europe onto the industry will do. So the ammonia stripping approach, there's 4 or 5 projects, maybe 6 in the north of Ireland at the moment, looking at the whole nutrient partitioning and separation and centrifuges and all sorts. And there's massive money been invested by the Northern Irish government or by the Department of Agriculture in the north and south to look at those projects. The truth is the technology isn't developed well enough to go enforcing it onto a burgeoning industry that's only trying to find its feet. For sure, you should keep track of it, and as technology develops, then implement it. As Ciara said, use low emission spreading technology. There's 38 million tonnes of slurry being spread in the Irish countryside every year without any ammonia stripping or without any kind of real motivation or drive to address the emissions from it. I'd say we should start there, to be honest, instead of knocking AD on the head again for another one.
Just a question for you, Stephen, while you have the mic. Does your product eliminate the need for agitation? Like, agitation is a huge source of gas release for a farmer, you know, so does your product eliminate the need for agitation?
What we found in pig farms, where there's often settling of solids and separation of solids over time, it was much more pumpable after treatment. In terms of full reduction of agitation, it helps with agitation, and it helps make it more mixable, so you don't have to do it for as long. But
it doesn't eliminate
that's
the
not a
crust.
claim that Glassport are making, no.
Okay. Is there any other questions before we conclude? From the floor, I think we have addressed all the questions that have come in via the Slido. I think if there's no further questions, I'd like to thank our panellists. So thanks to Seamus, Stephen, Chris, Joseph and Ciara. So that just takes us now, and you can wait there guys if you want just for the last couple of minutes, it takes us to our concluding remarks. So